Well, good morning, everybody. How many of you had a birthday this year? How many of you had a birthday this year? Raise your hand.
Not yet.
All right. Anybody still have one to go? Anybody still have one to look forward to? All right. I love birthdays. I love my own. I love other people's birthdays. We have two boys, 21 and 23, and they, my 21-year-old turned 21 back in February. My wife and I were planning to go to William & Mary where he goes to school, and could take him out to dinner, take some of his fraternity brothers out to dinner, and we mentioned a couple of weeks out, and he seemed okay with it. And about a week out, he was like less okay with it. And probably about 2 or 3 days before the birthday, he said, "Don't come." He said, "My fraternity brothers and I, they're going to take me out. We're going to have a great time. Why don't you just stay home and like have some hot chocolate?" So, and so I've been yearning all year to be able to celebrate a 21st birthday, Ben, and got crossed up early this year. But today we're not going to let this one slip by. And I'm delighted to be here with my friend Ben Cardin and Sheldon Whitehouse. I don't, is Sheldon here yet? I think Sheldon might be en route to be here, and I think John Dingell is going to try to get over and to join us. Carol Browner is with us, and it's just great to be with her. And Dr. Rizzo, one of our great docs from Delaware, who is also the chair of the American Lung Association's National Board of Directors. Dave Forder's here, who's executive director of the Institute for Clean Air Companies, and Alma Garnett came all the way from Portland, Maine, Ben. She's the president and founder of Hunter Panels, and she says that but for the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, she probably wouldn't have a company, and she'd probably be doing something else with her time. So with that having been said, I'm going ahead and we'll get started, and then I'll yield to, I'm going to come to Ben. I think I'll probably come to Ben next if John Dingell's not here yet, and then to Sheldon, and then we'll come to Carol and Dr. Rizzo and David, and then Alma. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this special birthday celebration. And that's really what it is. It's a celebration. It's a celebration of a law that has greatly improved the health and lives of everyone in this country. 21 years ago, we weren't debating on how to weaken or delay the implementation of our clean air laws. Instead, we were debating bipartisan legislation that would improve and strengthen our clean air laws. 89 senators, that's right, 89 senators approved the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, which a Republican President, George Herbert Walker Bush, signed into law 21 years ago today. And we are all better for it. Let me just ask Tom, when, where were you like 21 years ago? Were you in the House of Representatives? We were in, I'm just kidding, we were in the House. We were voting for this stuff and working with John Dingell to see it become law. And it wasn't just Democrats, was it? It was a lot of Republicans. It was very much a bipartisan initiative. Well, I've always believed that we can protect the environment and grow our economy at the same time. We don't have to make a choice. We can have both, and we should. In the case of the Clean Air Act, we have. Since we passed the Clean Air Act amendments of since we passed the Clean Air Act of 1970, for every dollar that we spend installing new pollution controls and cleaning up our air, we've seen some $30 return in the form of reduced healthcare costs, better workplace productivity, and saved lives. In other words, fewer people are getting sick today and missing work because of the Clean Air Act. Either work because of their own sickness, or the sickness of a child, or the sickness maybe of a parent. And here's some more good news. Our economy didn't take a slide because of these protections either. In fact, the opposite is true. Since President George Herbert Walker Bush signed the bipartisan Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, electricity rates have stayed constant, while the economy has grown by 60% in this country of ours. Despite the successes, more needs to be done. 60% of our citizens are still breathing unhealthy air. We also know more today than we knew 20 years ago about how pollution impairs health. We know more about how pollution travels from one state to the other. We know that, don't we, Ben? And we know more about how to curb that pollution in ways that make sense and are cost-effective. Last week's victory in the Senate against the resolution to dismiss the cross-state air pollution rule gives me hope that clean air can again be a bipartisan effort as it once was. And I'm hopeful that we can all work together for a cleaner tomorrow, a stronger economy, and a healthier people. that having been said, let me introduce, if I can, my wingman, my neighbor from our neighboring state of Maryland. Part of, when you hear the word Del Mar, I am Del, he is Mar, and we're still looking for Va, and he's a great bud. All right, Ben Cardin.
Well, thank you, Tom. Let me thank my friend and colleague, Tom Carper, for his extraordinary leadership. He is the leader in the United States Senate on clean air, and we couldn't have a greater champion. He has not only been there to make sure that our laws are enforced, but he's been there to protect against a lot of the attacks that we've seen come, particularly from the House of Representatives. So I just really want to thank Tom Carper for his leadership. I want to thank him on behalf of my granddaughters and future generations of people who are going to be healthier as a result of the work that Tom Carper has done. It's good to be here with Tom Downey. Tom Downey and I were together in the House of Representatives when we passed the amendments to the Clean Air Act 21 years ago. And he was one of the champions, not only on environmental issues, but on issues that are important for America's future. So it's good to be here. And we do celebrate today. We celebrate. As Tom Carper pointed out last week, we had a critical vote in the United States Senate on the cross-state pollution laws. We not only won that, we won that with a strong bipartisan vote. That's the way it should be. Clean air is an issue that has always been bipartisan, and we're here today to say, look, we're going to work with Democrats and Republicans in order to protect the health of the people of this nation. Tom Carper and I share a common border, and in Delmarva, we know that we're at what we call the tailpipe, where all the pollution ends up. My state of Maryland, the state of Delaware have taken tough measures to clean up our air, but we can't do it without national laws. Half the pollution, smog that comes into Maryland, comes in from other states. So we need the strong protection in the Clean Air Act, and that's why this is so important. I could give you all the numbers. I could tell you about the hundreds of thousands of lives, literally, that have been saved from premature death or for hospitalization or from heart attack. But let me just tell you, 13 million days of work have been saved as a result of the Clean Air Act. That translates into jobs in our economy. Senator Carper is absolutely right. This is not about a choice between environment and the economy. Your economy can't grow unless we have clean air and a healthy environment. In my state of Maryland, we adopted in 2007 some of the toughest environmental laws for clean air in the nation. And it translated into 2,000 additional jobs for the people of Maryland. We have clean air and standards, and we have jobs to prove it. Carol Browner has been one of the champions, first as we helped develop the clean air laws, and then to enforce it. She didn't know exactly what she was getting into when she helped develop these laws, but she enforced them in the way that showed the future of how we want to see sensible regulation for public health in America. So I'm proud to be with the people that are here. You give us confidence that we are going to continue to move forward to protect the health of the people of this nation and move our economy forward. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you. And thanks. Thank you very, very much. I don't think Sheldon is here yet. I'm going to take a moment, if I can, and introduce Carol Browner. I did not know Carol Browner in, was it 1988? Were you working in, when were you working for Al Gore?
1990.
1990. She's working for Al Gore as one of his top aides, and helping him to offer amendments to the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, which later on she had the pleasure as a EPA administrator of actually implementing and writing her on. I had the opportunity as governor and as an active participant of the National Governors Association to work with Carol on a bunch of issues. She was good enough to come to our state. And I don't know that anybody in the history of the EPA has served for a full 8 years as administrator. I think you're the only person who's ever done that is this person right here. For you, no purgatory, straight to heaven. And the other thing, Laura Haynes, who works a lot on these issues for me, was good enough to give me some more background material. And there's a couple of nuggets here that I just can't let slip by. She was selected by the National Mother's Day Committee as Mother of the Year as Mother of the Year, not just because she has a great son and did a great job raising him, but also because of all the kids that are not kids anymore. They're adults. And they've grown up healthy and strong because of the work that she's done to protect our air and our water, and that's why she won the award. Glamour Magazine Woman of the Year award, Woman of the Year, and the list goes on. The list goes on. And in any event, she is great. She, for the last couple of years, she was top person over in the White House on climate energy policy, and given the president great advice, and just still a great person to work with. All the people I've seen testify on environmental issues over the year, I think she's the best. She is so clear, so concise, and I look over the Republican side of the aisle, and they're sitting there going, yes, just like this as well. Carol Browner.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Carper, and it is indeed a pleasure to be here with you today and to join Senator Cardin. I also should probably recognize Tom Downey, who happens to be my husband. I didn't have the pleasure of actually serving in Congress with him, but he's here today. And I want to recognize Paul Billings, who joins us, who is the person behind everybody at the American Lung Association. And we can't thank you enough for what you've done year in and year out to make a difference as we move to make sure that we have clean air for our children, for our citizens to breathe. As you heard, I am the longest serving administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. I had a wonderful 8 years where I got to implement the 1990 Clean Air Act, and it was a hugely important law. It was important for a couple of reasons. First of all, Congress recognized that we should set public health standards based on the best available science, that we should use science to set standards. And I was able to set not only a new, tougher ozone standard based on science, but also the first ever fine particle standard. And we defended those standards all the way to the Supreme Court, where we won 9-0. The Supreme Court, Justice Scalia wrote the opinion, agreed that the law did in fact give EPA the authority to set a scientifically based standard. That is a hugely important provision in the Clean Air Act. The second thing the Clean Air Act did is it recognized that we should set these standards even if we didn't know how to meet them, that American ingenuity and innovation would allow us to rise to the occasion, create the jobs, and find the technological solutions, that we shouldn't sell ourselves short. And I can go through example after example where we did just that. When we banned chlorofluorocarbons, the thing that contribute to the hole in the upper ozone, we didn't know what the replacement would be for refrigeration, but American innovation and ingenuity rose to the occasion, and we found a replacement. When I set the Tier 2 standards, which reduce the pollution that comes from tailpipes in cars, again, we didn't completely understand how we would get there, but we found an answer, and we found it more quickly and more cheaply than anyone anticipated, and in doing so created American jobs. Now, there's a lot of debate right now that somehow or another we have to choose between clean air, a healthy environment, and jobs. We don't have to choose. I served in an administration that was very, very forward-leaning in setting tough air pollution standards and in enforcing those standards. And at the same time, we grew our economy. We have done it before. We can do it again. I applaud the president for his leadership in these issues. The car standards that he has proposed will once again bring American technology to the forefront and allow us to compete in the global market for clean energy. Thank you for organizing this today. Thank you all for the support you have given both as House members when this was originally passed, but perhaps even more importantly, for fighting the good fight. We have to continue to stand for clean air in this country and what it means, not just in terms of the health of our children, but what it means in terms of economic opportunity. Thank you.
How about a doctor? Let's hear from a doctor. How about not just any doctor, but a doctor from Delaware. And a doctor from Delaware who has a full-time day job, but we have a big healthcare provider system called Christiana Care, and he's the chief of pulmonary and critical care medicine section there. He also heads up, we were talking about this beforehand, he also heads up a part of the medical practice there at Christiana that deals with sleep. And I used to catch the 7:15 train in the morning. Chris Coons and I and John Carney, our congressman, come down on an early train. And I want to tell you, when we walk in the train station just before, around 7 o'clock in the morning to catch the train in Wilmington, people look sleepy. And when we walk through the train, people really look sleepy. And when I get off the train and walk out of the train station, they look like they use a good night's sleep. And I used to come down on the train when Tommy and I used to play in the house. We played some baseball on the congressional baseball team, and I'd take like the 6 o'clock train, and it's a train that starts off in Boston the night before. Left Boston at been about 10:30 at night and came all through the night. And people they had a sleeper car, but most people who got on the train they'd sleep sitting up in their seats, and it was an awful experience. And ever try to sleep on a train that stops about every 20 minutes and make all these milk stops? Anyway, I get on the train, I sit down next to somebody. They call it the night owl. I call it the train of the living dead. And I get on the train, I sit next to somebody, Ben, and then somebody had been on the train all night, and they were like trying to sleep and leaned over against the window and everything. I sit down next to them, and the train would like start up and kind of jerk. Anybody ever feel that jerk? And people wake up and they look at me and say, "Who are you?" And I say, "I'm Ben Cardin." And they say, "Well, where are we?" And this is a train that ends up in Washington, D.C. I say, "Richmond." And then they would really wake up really fast. Well, he does sleep deprivation. That's just like a side job, but he has a full-time job at Christiana as well. And also he chairs the board of the American Lung Association. Just terrific work. And for his many sacrifices, just for being an all-around great guy. I'm happy to introduce to you Dr. Albert Rizzo. Please, doctor.
I'm one of the people in front of Paul Billings at the Lung Association. We rely on him a lot. I really want to thank you, Senator Carper, for inviting me here to celebrate this important anniversary. It's an anniversary of the health and well-being of our nation, and I want to also thank Senator Carper for his tireless advocacy. I'm so proud that he's a senator of mine and has been working for clean air over these years. As the chairman of the board of the American Lung Association, I speak on behalf of millions of people with lung disease, but I also speak for the millions of people with normal lungs who are at risk from air pollution. The American Lung Association is honored and proud to recognize this 21st birthday of the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. The Clean Air Law itself affirmed that everyone in America should be protected from hazardous air pollutants, and today serves as a reminder to us and to the leaders in Washington to stand up for public health and everyone's right to breathe clean air. The 1990 Clean Air Act amendments made a good law even better, and in the process, they improved and they saved lives. The amendments built off existing laws, strengthened it in many ways, with one of the most important being the approach to cleaning up hazardous air pollutants such as mercury, arsenic, formaldehyde, and acid gases. In 1990, as you've heard, the Clean Air Act amendments enjoyed broad public support and bipartisan support in Congress. 89 senators, 401 representatives voted for the Clean Air Act amendments. Today, despite 75% of the American public supporting clean air, some in Congress are clearly out of sync with the people they represent. The Republican-led House of Representatives has voted repeatedly, or largely on partisan lines, to weaken, roll back, or block clean air protections. We are pleased the Senate is protecting the law, and we're optimistic that the bipartisan support for clean air is growing, as just last week, as you've heard, 6 Republican senators joined 50 of their Democratic colleagues to oppose a measure that would have blocked the cleanup of air pollution that blows across state lines. The EPA has estimated that in 2010 alone, the measures that were taken as a result of these amendments prevented 160,000 premature deaths, along with thousands of hospital visits and millions of days of lost productivity due to illness. These benefits exceed the cost 30 to 1. Congress needs to stand up for public health, not the polluters, and forgo efforts to block the scientists at EPA. As a pulmonary physician, I see my patients' lives affected by air pollution every day. The flares in their asthma and COPD, and the premature decline in the quality of their lives and the length of their lives. We know that even healthy people's lives are affected from exposure to these pollutants. And in the case of mercury, unborn children face a devastating ill health and developmental challenges linked to mercury exposure. Time is slipping away, and if the life-saving provisions of the Clean Air Act are not implemented now, people will continue to get sick. Many will die prematurely as they breathe dirty and at times deadly air. The American Lung Association has been looking out for the lungs of the Americans for the last 107 years. And for us, the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments will always be seen as a beacon of hope in our fight. So we thank Senator Carper and all of you being here, and we ask the President and Congress to stand firm for public health and protect and strengthen the Clean Air Act that has done so much for us so long. Thank you.
Dr. Rizzo, thank you very much. And David, I get to introduce David Ford. David is the Executive Director of the Institute of Clean Air Companies. He's going to talk to us about business opportunities the Clean Air Act has provided for some of the companies that are part of that coalition. Dave, come on up, please. Go ahead, let's apply for you. All right.
Well, I want to talk about a little bit about birthdays because actually I know something about birthdays. Today's my mother's birthday.
Today?
Today, and at home I have two 16-year-olds because they're 51 weeks apart. One on the 10th, one on the 17th. So I know something about birthdays right now.
You know what I want to do? When we finish up here, I want us to call your mother.
Okay? She would greatly appreciate that.
And I'll say, this is President Obama. No, we're going to call your mother. We're going to have a good time. Tell her how proud she should be of her boy.
She'll be very happy with that. And I think Ben Cardin, because she's in Maryland.
She's a
Marylander.
That's great. Oh, maybe Ben Cardin will make the call.
Okay. So thank you very much. It's an incredible opportunity to be for this 21st anniversary or birthday, as it may be, for the amendments of the Clean Air Act in 1990. This was a pretty important. I have a kind of a storied issue with my life. Coming into this, I was doing public policy for a long time, and then about 10 years ago, I was kind of called by this industry who was actually rubber hitting the road, building the equipment, the measurement, the control equipment that's being used to implement a lot of the policies that I was working with. So I was very, very happy to kind of work with them. And this group of folks they're not doing it altruistically, but this is a great opportunity for manufacturing, engineering, the types of jobs that you might see in commonplace. So, building a plant, or like in Indian River, which is in Delaware, adding some of the control technologies on there are just so incredibly important. Those are the things that are going to be able to meet all the requirements, and they're actually going to probably save a little bit of money on the way doing that, using coals. That makes sense in that system. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about that. I also like the lineup of speakers because I never like to walk into the room until someone has talked about public health, because this is not about technology or jobs. This is about the public health message that comes out. Then I walk in and I can talk about what Carol Browner has already said. It's a science-based, we're innovative, and it's jobs. But the public health has got to be there first. And so thank you, Dr. Rizzo, for doing that part of it. The job of our industry is to offer the products and for measurement and of air pollution and control technologies that achieve these clean air goals. We've done this in such a way of being able to innovate over the years, such that the end sources that have to comply have been able to do that with lots of innovation, lots of opportunities to innovate within the process. And there's been a lot of flexibility in order to come to compliance. So when I talk about a product from our industry, it's not just one product, it's a suite of products. And so we're very proud to be able to offer those kind of things and do it in advance often when new rules come out, like mercury. So we'll jump in and mercury's coming down, and it's a chicken and egg kind of situation. Do you build the equipment before the regulations are there, or do you wait till the regulations come and then do it? Well, we do a little bit of both, and so it's been very useful. So I'm just going to be brief and just say this is an industry. It's been represented by the Institute of Clean Air Companies for 51 years. Many of the companies have been here longer than that, and many will be here much longer than that in the future. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave is a warm-up act for Alma Garnett, and as I mentioned earlier, Alma's come all the way from Portland, Maine, the real Portland, to be with us here today. She's the president and founder of Hunter Panels, and she's the vice president of Carlisle Construction Materials. She's going to give us a perspective from the business community from Maine. But Alma, yeah, come on in here.
Wow.
And And
Nice to meet
you're going to be the warm-up act for the man, John Dingell.
That's
All right.
pretty cool.
Nice round of applause for Alma Gurnett. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Senator Carper. I am very happy to be here, actually.
Closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. I don't like to celebrate my birthdays anymore, so I'm happy to celebrate the birthday of the Clean Air Act. It's much more fun. I am also going to tell a story about my industry that resonates with a lot of what people have said today about the Clean Air Act of amendments of 1990. It's a real win-win story for American business, for human health, and for the environment. My company is called Hunter Panels. We're located in Portland, Maine, and we are the fastest growing U.S. manufacturer of high thermal building insulation that makes buildings more energy efficient. I started the company in 1997. I was on a mission to make our buildings more energy efficient, and we are now the largest manufacturer of polyiso in the country. We have 6 manufacturing facilities. We employ over 700 people, and we produce over 1 billion board feet of insulation a year. That is a lot of insulation, let me tell you that. My company's success, and of course the success of my industry as a whole, owes an enormous debt of gratitude to the Clean Air Act of 1990, because without those amendments, our industry may possibly not have been able to exist, and we wouldn't be able to be producing these products that save energy in our buildings. Without the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, our country would be less efficient and more polluted. The story, of course, begins back in the mid-1980s when international climate scientists realized that ozone-depleting substances were causing a deleterious effect to the ozone layer and was escalating quite rapidly. We all know we all remember the ozone depletion crisis. CFCs were a agent that we used in the manufacturing of our product, and when the Montreal Protocol went into effect in 1987, oh my goodness, I'm accelerating already. The phase out of CFCs became mandatory. Now, many people thought that our industry would go out of business. Why? Because we had not yet developed the technology, to some of what Carol was pointing out. We had not yet developed the technology to replace these CFCs in our process. And frankly, we would have had to shut our doors. The answer to the challenge was, of course, the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. And for the next 10 years, our industry and my company worked hand in hand with the EPA in a public-private cooperation with Republican and Democratic administrations alike. The Clean Air Act amendments set forth a rational, proactive timeline for us to phase in a rational path the transition to zero ozone-depleting expansion agents in our manufacturing process. We worked with EPA under both Bush administrations, under the Clinton administration, and we developed and phased in these new substances, the result of which, this is the frosting on the cake, as it were. We have a better product today. It is more sustainable, it is more energy efficient, and we have a thriving industry in the high thermal building envelope arena, green buildings, as it were. So, and I can tell you, it was not, when we transitioned out of CSCs, it was not, did not hurt our profits one bit. So not only today is the ozone layer healing, but we have a product, the polyiso insulation product, that saves energy in all our buildings and reduces pollution through the inhibition of emissions of greenhouse gases. So the point I really want to emphasize, and the reason I was glad to come here today, is that when the world's climate scientists realized that human activity was causing a negative effect to human health and to the planet, we came together to work out a solution. It was urgent, it was immediate, and it had to be done right away, but we put together a sensible policy with EPA that gave us the time to create these new products. We worked to fulfill these policies over the next 10 years, and it's a great success story for all of us. And so, Mr. Senator and esteemed guest. It gives me great pleasure to extend my happy birthday wishes to the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. Since 1990, our industry has added more than a dozen manufacturing facilities in North America, created thousands of jobs, saved countless amounts of energy through the high thermal performance of the building. And in fact, my company is right now, as we speak, building our 7th facility in the great state of Washington. Without the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, it's very probable that my company would not have been a viable concern, and we would not be able to produce these products that make our country more energy secure and energy efficient. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alma, just leave your talking points right
Oh, I'm sorry. Mine or yours?
there. You can just-
All of them.
Alma, those are great remarks. And I just want to say, whenever some of our colleagues say, you know, we're going to kill the economy, we're going to kill jobs,
No.
we clean up our air and clean up our environment, we're
What's
going to
better
give
than
him.
clean air?
We're going to give him we won't give him your cell number, but
Please
we'll
do.
give him your
Give them my cell number.
That's
I'll talk
great.
to them.
Great. That's great to hear. Well, Alma, try to walk off with all my notes here, and so I'm just going to.
Business person, not a
That's fine. Let me just say, so we've been joined by Sheldon Whitehouse. Sheldon, come on up here, bud. Sheldon and I are special compatriots because we come from two of the smaller states in America, Delaware, Rhode Island.
Downwind ones,
We were along with Ben. We live at the end of America's tailpipe, but we're not just going to take it. We decided we're just not going to take this anymore, and we're going to be a strong voice and say, look, we can have those jobs. We're going to have the cleaner air. There's no stronger, more forceful, more compelling voice in our caucus, and I think in the Senate on these issues than Sheldon. It's great to work with him on these, and I'm delighted that you're here. Sheldon Whitehouse.
Thank you very much, Tom. It's great to be here with Chairman Dingell, with my friend Ben Cardin. Tom has shown great leadership in calling all this together, and I appreciate how much Senator Carper has done. It is good to have Alma Garrett here. I hope that your next plant gets opened in Rhode Island. The only thing you could have said better was that it was Rhode Island instead of Washington. And of course, Carol Browner, who's worked so hard on these issues for so long. So I'm in very good company here today. And a 21st birthday is a big deal. My daughter turned 21 a little while ago, and it was an opportunity for my wife and I to have a little bit of reflection about her childhood and suddenly, you know, adult and on our own. And now this gives us a chance to reflect a little bit about how the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments have done, how well they've grown up. And it's particularly important that we have this discussion because we are in Washington, a town which propagates immense amounts of baloney. And we are at a time when there is a lot of baloney being propagated about the Clean Air Act and about environmental regulation. Turns out that polluters don't just emit pollution, they also emit baloney. And so it's good to look back and to realize that during this time, first of all, the early predictions of how much dealing with nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide was going to cost, the early predictions about how much it was going to cost to deal with CFCs turned out to be wildly exaggerated by a multiple of 5 or 6. Granted, there were costs, and we understand and appreciate that. But what we also know, looking back, is that for every $1 in costs that the polluting industries had to pay to clean up their act, America as a whole got $30 in benefit. Not a additional 30 cents on your dollar. That's not a bad return. This is a 30 to 1, $30 for $1 benefit. And that only includes the quantifiable costs. It includes the costs of the child having to go into the emergency room and get on the albuterol inhaler and be treated through their asthma attack. It does not count the cost of the mother's heartache and worry as she waits for her infant's lungs to begin to operate properly again. So it is a very, very important realization, I think, to have looking back that this is a huge win for the American people. And the only possible way that you can believe that the Clean Air Act has been bad for the economy is to be wearing blinders through which the only interest you can see is the special interest that has to pay the dollar. And you can't perceive the $30 win. Because clearly anybody who sees the $30 win for America from this act, it's very little to begrudge the dollar that buys that $30 win. So it's very good that Senator Carper had the chance to call us all together here. I'm very grateful to Chairman Dingell for being here with a bunch of senators. And always good to be with Carol Browner, and thank you, Emma, for what you said, and continued good luck in your business.
Thank you.
Sheldon, thank you so much. You know, when the President of the United States is introduced, all they say is, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. And I'm not good. I could spend, sometimes I get introduced, and I'm sure this has happened to my colleagues as well. I actually have an introduction that's longer than your remarks. And I'm just going to make this really, really short. John Dingell, chairman, great chairman, champion for clean air, champion for Michigan as well, our friend, John Dingell.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today is a very happy day for me. I want to thank you, Senator Carper, and my colleagues in the Senate for putting together this small celebration of 21 years of the Clean Air Act. I would begin by noting that my colleagues here that I look at, believe it or not, were members of the House when we did that. And Tom Downey will remember that. They've accepted a small demotion, and I wish perhaps maybe there were some way that we could show our appreciation for their wonderful service. But it's a great pleasure to be with my three colleagues from the Senate, Tom Downey and you, Carol Browner, and to recall those remarkable days. Today is not only the 21st birthday of the Clean Air Act, but it also, believe it or not, is a birthday of my youngest daughter.
Whoa.
She being a young woman, I'm not going to tell you her age because that's a closely guarded secret by most young ladies. In any event, this was a wonderful piece of work. It was one of the hardest pieces of legislation I ever worked on, and I heard somebody say, well, wasn't it wonderful that you did it on the House floor in 13 hours? I said, yeah, it only took us 13 years to do it in 13 hours on the House floor. In any event, the last perfect piece of legislation was brought off Mount Sinai by Moses. And ever since then, we've been struggling to match his skill and the skill of the good Lord when he wrote this in stone with his finger. But having said this, it has been a great statute. It has worked. There have been things wrong with it, and we probably could have done better. But I'm not sure that that would have been politically possible. In any event, it has reduced key pollutants by 60%, while at the same time the economy grew by 200%. As my colleagues here who have served so well here, I'm delighted to note that our air is cleaner than it was 20 years ago when the amendments were signed into law. And those changes have shown that we could have clean air while we protect jobs and the economies. Now EPA has made mistakes in implementing Clean Air Act, and I from time to time have had to be critical of them. But basically their work has been superb, and I am grateful to them for what they have done. As I have mentioned, there have been charges made that it has caused us problems with regard to a fragile economy. And it has inconvenienced some people in those particulars. But the total actions that we have taken under this law and the benefits achieved have been enormous and have been significant in our efforts to keep our air clean and the health of our citizens in good shape. Now, beyond that, there have been some serious changes in the Clean Air Act that passed the House this year. And unfortunately, those changes were adopted in a most curious fashion without the kind of work and concentration that we took in bringing this matter together. In the first instance, many will recall that it took about 6 months to pass the basic legislation in the House and the Senate, and then it took us about 18 months to get the doggone business finished in the conference. In any event, if we're going to continue our progress towards a wholesome environment, we're going to have to work together to do one of the things that has to be done in this institution of ours, and that is work together to find bipartisan solutions as we did 20 years ago. The majority in the House, unfortunately, has decided that this is not going to be done, and that is of great regret, and I think all of us here would extend our hand to them and urge them and ask them to work with us to address the problems that exist in all of these matters, including the budget. In any event, the Congress does need more debates and more discussions as we used to have 20 years ago. We need to continue to scrutinize the policies of this country, like the Clean Air Act, to ensure that they're striking the right balance between protecting the environment, the public health, as well as building our economy and investing in American jobs. On the anniversary of the Clean Air Act, I'm sure my colleagues and I up here hope that the House and Senate will continue to work together on these bipartisan discussions and differences as we did back when we passed the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act, and I'm sure that the country will benefit greatly if we do so. I want to thank my colleagues and my good friend here from the White House for being here, and to make it very clear that we are going to have to do a lot of work to see to it that we now have the law properly enforced, properly administered, rather than to spend our time carping about it. And I want to thank you all for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just heard from a giant really for all times, and a giant when it comes to standing up for his state, for jobs and job creation, but also a giant who knows how to find a compromise so that we can have clean air and a cleaner environment as well. One more nice round of applause for John Dingell. John, thank you so much. I don't know if there'd be any questions. We're going to stick around for a while. If any of our friends from the press have a question, feel free. If you all want to ask some questions now, we'll be happy to collectively try to respond to those. Anybody at all? Otherwise, we have some cake over here. Have some cake over here. Who baked that cake? Who was the person who baked that cake? Where's Jenny? Jenny, see Jenny right over here. You baked the cake, and Mary Rose, good enough to hold it for us, and we're going to eat that sucker here in a minute. And we have a mother over here, mother of a couple of kids, what, 2, 3 kids, and they were good enough to, how old are your kids? 7 and 10. They were good enough to do the artwork for us, so we thank them and you as well. And so any questions at all? Otherwise, we'll just eat some cake and take your questions one by one. All right. With that, happy birthday, everybody. Happy birthday, America. Great work. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Quit that. You're a good man, and we love you.